Well, welcome in, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. I am Tim Kernan alongside Mike Freshwater. Mike, good morning. How are you?
Good. Excuse me. Good morning, Tim. How are you?
I am doing great this morning. Mike, we're heading into week one, the official week one of college football, and I'm excited. How about you?
Really excited. Got a little taste last weekend, a little more Thursday, a little more last night, but today it really kicks in. I think I heard 87 games over the weekend this weekend, so it is in full bloom, that's for sure.
And Mike, before we kind of jump into the college sports scene, I know you are a huge Jimmy Buffett fan.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We just found out that he passed away.
Yeah, kind of a surprise, but not really, though. He went in the hospital back in May, and they were very secret about why he went in, but when he came out, he didn't say anything about what his problem was, and but he had some obvious serious health issue, and so yeah, he died overnight, 76, only 76. Yeah, love Jimmy Buffett. My playlist is full of his songs. I have had all his albums or CDs over the years, and yeah, he's going to be sorely missed by a lot of people.
Yeah, I saw him twice. I saw him once down in Cincinnati and once up in Cleveland. And boy, we just had a blast.
Saw him in Fort Lauderdale, and I lived down there. And believe it or not, by himself at a small music theater back in '84, I think it was, Sunrise Musical Theater, by himself. And then halfway through the performance, he brought Timothy Schmidt out with him from the Eagles, and
Yeah.
that was unforgettable. Stood up on stage by himself with sand and a palm tree and played an acoustic guitar and sang, and he was something else.
And of course, Bob Barker passed away also.
Bob Barker.
Price are right. He was 100 years old, Mike.
Well, he did not get to 100. He was 99.
Oh, okay.
Which is, if you know anything about that show, they spin that thing, and
Right.
the numbers and all that. He didn't get to the 100.
The Showcase Showdown.
But you can't argue with 99 or 100 years old, whatever he ended up being. You can't argue with that longevity. I'll take it in a heartbeat right now.
Absolutely. So, end of an era, certainly, with both of those gentlemen. And I think Bob Barker, of course, The Price is Right, but also known for his cameo in Happy Gilmore. Just
outstanding.
That was absolutely hilarious.
Maybe the best highlight of that movie, right? It was absolutely hilarious. So out of character for what you thought of him, in that scene, and it made it just absolutely spectacular.
It really was. Mike, also of interest, I think I have not read this book yet, but I plan on it. But Billy Walters is a bookie, and I believe served some time in prison for the things that he was involved in.
Well, his time in prison was spent as a result of an FBI investigation over insider trading,
Yeah.
and so he got in big trouble over that, and so yeah, he's written a book, I guess, right?
He has written a book, and certainly interesting. But tidbits have come out about that book, and I've always been a huge Phil Mickelson fan. I really like Phil, and
Lefty.
Even though that my opinion, I guess I'm keeping that close to the vest about all this live golf and the PGA Tour, because I just really can't figure it out, and I don't think they've quite figured out what they're going to do yet either. But
No.
So, I definitely am a fan of Phil Mickelson, but some of the things that this Billy Walters individual wrote in his book one was that Phil wanted to bet on the U.S. Ryder Cup team.
And probably did.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Billy Walters said, I'm not going to be part of that.
right.
And Phil basically to Billy Walters dropped the idea, but that doesn't mean he went off and found some other way for doing it.
Well, that's true.
In fact, I'm sure he bet, and that was the year that they had a 6-point lead or a big lead going into the last day on that Sunday against the Europeans, and ended up losing.
Lost, yeah.
And by the way, Phil lost his match that day, so. If he was betting on the Ryder Cup, he was betting heavy on himself, and he couldn't get it done.
He indicates in his book that he bet $800 million, a little over $800 million, and lost.
Well,
$100 million.
I mean, I saw some of that. To me, like, there was one stat in there where he bet he made over almost 4,000 bets in one season, averaging 9 or 10 bets a day. I mean, in betting like 40 major league, not major league baseball game, but 40. There was one quote in there where he made like 40 bets on Major League Baseball and over just a 2 or 3 day. I don't even know how you know what you're doing there. I mean,
How do you have time?
but he was, well, he had, so it wasn't legal. He was doing it with offshore accounts, but he had heavy limits. I mean, he had real big limits. He was betting hundreds of thousands of dollars on games. I mean, it's really staggering, the numbers and the amounts that he claims he took part in. I'll take it with a little bit of grain of salt. I believe there's some truth to it, but I don't know how much is exactly true. Given the guy's writing a tell-all book, and he's in jail because of Phil. I mean, he basically says in his book that if Phil had come forth and had mentioned or had testified to the FBI that Billy Walters didn't do what he was alleged to doing, and he claims he's innocent, he would not have gone to jail.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's a big bone to pick there between him and Phil, even though they were good friends before that. But it's staggering. It's absolutely staggering, the amount of money and the number of bets that he made. It's mind-boggling.
It really is. And do you have a problem with that, Mike? I look at it like, okay, he had the money. It was his money. He can do with it whatever he wants. However, I also look at it and think, wow, that's a lot of money. He could have done a lot of good with that. Not that he doesn't. He does a lot of charity work and things like that. And it is his money, but boy, that is a
Well,
as you
Michael
mentioned,
Jordan,
staggering.
Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley are just notorious gamblers, and
Yeah.
they're probably close to, yeah. If you talk about betting at casinos and playing cards, they're probably up there with Phil. But excuse me, no, I don't have a. I mean, I say you can do anything you want as long as it's within your means, and evidently this is within his means, although it was hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. You're right, but it wasn't illegal.
No.
It just isn't a good look for Phil, and his days are, maybe in terms of success on the golf course and his popularity with people, his days may be over, at least for a while, because of all this stuff.
Yeah, it'll be certainly will be interesting to see how all that shakes out. I do plan on reading the book, so maybe you and I can address this as we go on. But certainly will be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out for a week now or so, maybe. There's been some feedback, or Phil's. I don't know if Phil's made an official statement on it or not, but there sure has been a lot of reaction and a lot of they're poking a lot of fun at him.
Yeah.
Kind of getting their digs in, especially the PGA golfers. I saw Rory McIlroy make a comment.
I'm sure.
So, but anyway, yeah, it's an interesting story, and it'll be interesting to see what lies ahead for Phil, both on the golf course, especially given the Live and PGA merger, and in his personal life, and if he's still doing all that craziness.
And Mike, before we move on to college football, I did want to ask you at least about week 0. Go over week 0 a little bit. Really, only a couple marquee games. I thought Notre Dame defeated Navy and USC defeated San Jose State.
Both covered, by the way. Speaking of gambling,
Are you betting $800 million?
No. My limits are a little lower than that. So yeah, those were side note for me, and probably a lot of other people. Sat down to watch the Utah Florida game, and it was that Thursday night, right? And
Yes.
Spectrum turned off ESPN. They've got some kind of a contract dispute with Disney, so all the ESPN channels, networks, including the SEC network and all the Disney networks, have been shut off by Spectrum, and you can't see anything. And so 20 minutes before the game, where everybody's all excited, here we are kicking off the college football season, Florida and Utah, and boom, the screen goes to a static screen with a comment on it about what's going on, and that was very disappointing for me. But as it turns out, that game wasn't much of a game, and I didn't miss much.
Yeah, Utah defeated Florida, of course, 24-11. But in terms of week 0, Mike, who would you give your helmet sticker from last weekend?
Well, I mean, who can argue with Caleb Williams? He's the heavy Heisman Trophy candidate. Came out and did a really good job against. Excuse me, I'm getting attacked by a bee over
Yeah,
here
I see it.
in the Gamecast Sports studios. Um, he did a great job. I didn't watch the whole game, saw highlights. He's spectacular. I mean, I've heard so many good things about him. People are really going off the deep end and talking about how he's going to be, the number one overall pick next year. He's a Hall of Fame. He's got Hall of Fame talent and all this. But threw 4 touchdown passes in that win, and you can't really argue with his success and what he's done, especially given the expectations. So, if I had a helmet sticker for anybody last week that I saw, it'd be Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and I know I'm going to shock everyone by my helmet sticker, but I'm going to give it to Sam Hartman.
Really?
For a couple of reasons. One, he played very well.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
he's a 6th-year senior, and he did not look like he was nervous at all. They, of
Yeah.
course, played over in Dublin and defeated Navy, but he had a great game, led Notre Dame, really didn't make any mistakes, looked very comfortable. But I'm going to go ahead and give him my helmet sticker, not just because of the way he played, Mike, and the stats. I think he had 4 touchdowns as well, but just the comfort level, the way he came in, and it didn't look like he missed a beat from last year.
It's a good sign for Notre Dame, and to have a solid veteran quarterback there that can lead the team and be successful. It's a really good sign for them and bodes well for the next several weeks for sure.
It really is because, I don't know how closely you have watched Notre Dame in the last 10, 15 years, but quarterback has been the position where they've had decent quarterbacks, serviceable quarterbacks, but they have not had a star. I don't think since Jimmy Clausen or maybe Brady Quinn. And I think that has been their problem. That is why they have not reached the peak.
Yeah, they've been inconsistent with it. I mean, there's been a few injuries. Malik got hurt. There's been a couple of other injuries
Yeah.
along the way where guys had to, be replaced. And so it's been an up and down position if they can keep him healthy. And I have no idea. I don't know if you do who their backup quarterback is, but if they can keep this kid healthy, who knows? They did look good against Navy, but it was Navy, and they were supposed to look good. We'll see here
Yeah.
really quickly here if they're for real.
Well, they play Tennessee State today. Obviously, that's
It's like
not a huge game.
Right.
Then they go to NC State, and then the big one.
Yeah, well, NC State should be a nice prep. That should be a little bit. They're good. NC State's good again, and
Yeah, that's away.
That will be an interesting game to see and watch because I think NC State might have a chance. Not having looked at
Yeah, of course.
point spreads or
Yeah.
anything ahead of time, but I don't think Notre Dame will be a real heavy favorite in that game, and it should be interesting. Going on the road as a top 10 or 15 team in the country is always hard, and when you're Notre Dame, it's even harder.
Yeah, they're going to certainly draw a capacity crowd there. But last night, Michigan State defeated Central Michigan. No surprise here.
Nope.
Miami Hurricanes defeated Miami of Ohio. The Battle of Miami.
What was that score?
38-3.
Wow.
Hurricanes.
Yeah,
And Louisville defeated Georgia Tech 39-34, and that was a pretty exciting game.
good for Louisville. That's a good start. Bob Berry's alumnus.
Yes, sir. And did you have a chance to watch any of that game, Mike? Haynes King is the quarterback for Georgia Tech. He's just a sophomore. He finished with 313 yards, 3 TDs, 1 interception. But I really like that kid's game. He
Saw
looked good.
highlights. Certainly looked good in the highlights. Young guy going out there and doing something like that against a pretty good opponent is good. I had not heard of him before, but one of those guys you're going to be interested in keeping your eye on, as the season progresses.
Yeah, that he looked good, and unfortunately, the Georgia Tech for him they didn't come through with the victory, but Louisville got the W there, and that was an interesting ball game. But again, there's a whole slate of games coming up this weekend, and I think certainly there are a couple today. Some of the top 10 teams play, but a really interesting one tomorrow night: LSU versus Florida State, and another great one on Monday is Clemson Duke. And Mike, I'm going to put Clemson on upset alert there.
Oh boy,
I think Duke is
Blue
a
Devils.
pretty solid team this year.
Well, we'll see. But there are some great games. I mean, to start off the season or this early in the year with an Ohio State an Indiana game, and then Florida State and LSU. That's a spectacular matchup. I think Florida State is better. I think LSU has a bone to pick with everybody. They're not getting the respect probably that they've wanted. Brian Kelly down there, and so yeah, there's some games, spectacular games on TV this weekend. Looking forward to watch as many of them as I can.
Yeah, that will be in the Camping World kickoff. LSU at Florida State. I think Florida State is the home team. That is at a neutral site,
it is,
correct?
yes, yeah, it is. It's in Atlanta, I think.
Okay. And Mike, we are going to have Jeff Gilbert on again today, but before we bring Jeff on, I have not had a chance to watch this yet, but I know you did, and I wanted to get your feelings. There was a documentary, a short documentary that came out, and I don't know if the listeners are familiar with this story, but it's about the Bishop Sycamore quote unquote high school,
right,
that turned out to be completely fake.
Correct, completely fake.
Can you give us your maybe a little synopsis?
Well,
on
funny
that?
enough and cleverly enough, the title of it is BS High. That's the title of the.
That's fitting.
Yes, it's on HBO, I think, Cinemax, HBO Max. The guy that led that whole organization down the path that they went is an absolute shyster. I don't think he's in jail. I know he's been sued, and he has tremendous debt over all this stuff. But he is something, this guy, and they feature him in the documentary. They've got him in a room in front of a camera, and he probably, I don't know, talks for a third or more of it, and the things that he admits to, and just outright lying, and knowingly and willingly not paying debts, and just the craziness that happened in that situation. And of course it gives Ohio a bad eye, because it was right there in Columbus, right in OHSAA's backyard, which they have an investigator from the OHSAA who investigated them on that show, and they talked to him quite a bit. But it's mind-boggling that he got away with what he got away with, and people really just kind of saw money, and that's what he was into it for, really, is for the money, and didn't work out too well. He's in deep debt, but how do they talk about it. It's he cooked up a couple fake high schools from scratch out of nowhere. These kids never attended class. In fact, he had a 21-year-old former JUCO player on that team, and it's insane. And you do have to watch it if you can. It's called BS High, and it's jaw dropping. Maybe Jeff's seen it. When we talk to him, he can add a little bit of insight into that maybe. But it was absolutely it's a crazy story, and it's one of those things you can't make up. Right.
Well, and you kind of answered my question, but why? Why?
He was all about him. I mean, he is 100% like narcissistic as they get, and it was all about him and getting the attention that he wanted, and being the man. He organized it, he put it together, he coached it. Evidently not very well, but it's crazy, and he absolutely exploited the heck out of these kids who ended up with nothing at the end of the day, and. You got to watch it. You got to watch it to believe it.
Were the kids aware of what was going on? Did they know what was happening?
They talked to several of them, and I think they maybe didn't at the beginning, but started to kind of see it. And then ultimately at the end, they really knew what was going on and how they were getting screwed by this guy, and they talk about that. It's sad, but most of them, if not all, have recovered and are doing well. But it's crazy. It's a crazy story. I can't even. I don't know how it got that far.
Mike, you and I, of course, cover a local high school here in town. The Alternites. You and I call their football games. They had a game Thursday night. They defeated the Meadowdale Lions 35-0. Next week, also a Thursday night game. We'll be calling that one. They're going to take on the Trotwood Madison Rams, who are having a very good season. And this is, I think this particular game is drawing some attention across the state. Both teams, I believe, are 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
And This is going to be a very interesting ball game. We'll talk to Jeff a little bit about it here in just a few minutes. But I think the Knights are certainly feeling good after winning two straight, lost to Fairmont in the opener, and Trotwood Madison won a big ball game the other night against Springfield. And that makes this contest pretty exciting coming up next week.
Well, yeah, they lost week 1 to Winton Woods in a relatively close game, but they knocked off Fairmont by a lot, and then they beat Springfield last night by a point. They held on and won at the end. But holy mackerel, that had to be the win across the whole state that raised most eyebrows. Division III Trotwood beating Springfield, who's just fresh off of a state final, appearance and had tons of talent and potential coming into this season. What a devastating loss for those boys. But Jeff Graham and the Trotwood Madison Rams are riding high. And actually, from Alder's perspective, I think it's great that Trotwood did win. Right? They're coming in.
Absolutely.
Maybe a little bit confident. They might be confident. They might be a little confident, overconfident, hopefully. And what an opportunity for Alter to get tremendous computer points in a great win, like you said, that would raise some eyebrows as well around the area, if not beyond.
Well, both high school teams certainly go into each season with their goal being to win it all. And Jeff Graham doing a fantastic job over there at Trotwood Madison. They certainly go in every year, Mike, expecting to at least go far in the playoffs.
Absolutely. They have a huge challenge out there. They're not in a league, but that's why they got to play some of these really tough non-conference games just to get games. And that's a game that I'm really looking forward to. And this week's going to go by, this coming week's going to go by fast, and we'll be out there and seeing you in the press box before you know it.
Well, Mike, let's see if we can get Jeff on the line here. Jeff is the high school sports guru and certainly the Ohio State insider. Let's go see if Jeff, do we have you on the line?
I can hear you guys.
All right, we
Yep,
can hear you.
Sure can.
Jeff, of course, is on his way over to Bloomington, Indiana to cover the Ohio State-Indiana game today. Jeff, we know you're busy. Really appreciate you joining us here this morning.
Oh, happy to do it. Yeah, we're enjoying 465 traffic right now, and I say that with my tongue in my cheek. So that is, we're making it. We'll get there.
Jeff, before we jump into Ohio State, can you I'm assuming that you're probably going to cover the Alter Trotwood game this coming week. Can you give us your feelings about this coming game?
Yeah, that's my plan, to cover that game as long as we survive I-465. I plan to be there Thursday night. Trotwood last night, beating Springfield is certainly an eyebrow raiser. Springfield has got their little compromised quarterback right now. Don't know how much that had to do with it. It's a 1-point game. Springfield missed an extra point with about 3-something to go that would have tied the game, obviously. So who knows what all that means. But Trotwood's really good. That's not. We know that how athletic they can be and how fast and big and strong up front too. They seem to have everything you kind of need. They're strong, they're fast, they have a really good quarterback, who, by the way, is committed to play at Indiana. So,
right. Is he going to be there today?
He could be. He could be.
Yeah,
I might see him.
I would bet on that.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was here today.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he wasn't.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So, but that's going to be. Alter's going to have to play really, really well. I don't like to predict games I'm going to go cover, but I think you can kind of hear where my head is on that. Probably that. Trotwood's certainly going to be. It certainly would be a favored team in this game. Beating two GWAP teams now.
Yeah. Beating one that Alter lost to pretty handily. So that's if you're into doing that. Right.
Right. The transitive property doesn't always work, but they look really good. I mean,
Do they
that's
have any
really what it
weaknesses,
is.
Jeff?
Not that I've seen yet. I mean, in that game that I saw them play, they did everything well. And to win last night, even though they were at home, and Springfield had some quarterback issues, still to beat them like that just says a lot. And I felt like after the Fairmont game, it's like, this team is going to be a big problem I think Division III playoffs for sure. And winning last night just further proof of that.
Yeah. I haven't seen the stats, and I know you didn't see the game last night, but you almost have to assume that Timothy Carpenter had another stellar outing.
I would assume so. And actually,
Against some, excuse me, against some really stiff competition, right? I mean, Springfield, if you have to prove yourself, and you do it against a team like Springfield, then you are the real deal.
Right, I can tell you right now because the guy who does the stats for Trotwood sends them to me. Now I met him at the game last week, and I'm on his email list after the games. He was 12 of 23 for 119 and a touchdown. He carried it 17 times for 36. The yards on the game were, they only had they had like 220 yards of offense. Springfield actually outgained them by, 40, 50 yards. Springfield had more first downs.
Were there any turnovers in the game?
Yeah, there were. Springfield had looks like 4 interceptions.
Whoa,
boy!
There you go.
Yeah, they threw 4 picks. There's a highlight on.
So the quarterback is an issue.
Yeah, I saw one highlight on Twitter. There was one in the end zone where it was double covered, and one guy was falling down, kicked the ball up in the air, and his teammate caught it for the interception. So they got a kind of a lucky play as well. But yeah, when you get that many interceptions,
you better win.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
You better win. So,
right.
If they played again 3 weeks from now, it's, it was a 1-point game. They play again, it could go another way, right? They scored late, but there's an extra point. So.
Yep. But it's still impressive win, and sounds like he had a decent game. Nothing to get too excited about, but he led them to a win. That's all that matters.
No, but it was against a pretty good defense. So one kid to watch. He's something to watch. Michael Smith is a good running back for them, good athlete, very shifty. And then they got a young receiver. He's a sophomore, Amani Rogers, and he's very fast. So if you can't cover him, could be a long night. You have to be able to cover him. And they got a couple other guys that can catch the ball pretty well too.
We haven't hasn't been tested at all in terms of their pass defense, so that's going to be something for us to really kind of keep an eye on come Thursday night.
Yeah. If they can't cover guys or keep up with them, it's going to be tough.
And we had a little bit of trouble with that last year, but we got older guys back there now, and I think more athletic secondary, so hopefully that'll make a difference.
Well, and I would think you would consider Trotwood's quarterback a throwing quarterback, but he can certainly run as well.
17 carries last night. That's a lot that you can't.
Yeah.
Right. You just can't assume when he drops back he's going to throw it.
No.
Right. No, he's dual threat at this level. Whether he's dual threat in college, that much I don't know that'll be true, but he'll be capable of running. But he's definitely a dual threat at the high school level.
So changing gears just a little bit, if you don't mind, you're going over to Bloomington to cover the game and write up about it for the Dayton Daily newspaper. Is that correct?
No, I'm doing this for we talked about this before, I guess. The high state football is for Press Pros magazine.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. Is somebody going over there? Is Jablonski going over there, or?
Dayton will have somebody over there. Yeah.
Well, anyways, that doesn't change my question. Can you, in a really, really brief way, kind of run down your list of things that you do in order of how you do them when you're going to cover a game like that? Do you go down on the field at the beginning of the game? Do you get anything from folks down there? And obviously, you watch the game in the press box for a college, I would assume.
I'll probably head down there before the game at some point, and just kind of walk around, see what it's like, um, sort of check it out. It's my first trip over here. But I'll probably do that, and then I've got some other stuff to work on. I got something to write up for the paper tomorrow. So I'll be working on that. I'll be looking at the game notes, just sort of getting all my computer set up, get my files ready, get ready to do stuff. So when the game's over, you can kind of do it as quickly as you can and get back on the road as quickly as you can. But I don't know what the post-the-game interview stuff will be like over here. I think they got a spot they do Ohio State.
Right.
That's where I'll be, and we'll find that out when we get here and all that. So you just sort of, going to a place for the first time is always a little like, where am I going? Like I was at Valley View last night. I'd never covered a game at Valley View before, so I had to kind of, where did I park? First mistake I made last night was I just plugged in the name of this high school, and I showed up at the high school, and there's no football stadium.
No, it's in town. Yeah, it's down in town.
So I wasn't the only person in the parking lot. There was a couple Bellbrook people, I think, circling through the parking lot, like, where's the football stadium? And so then I found it on the GPS, and it was like a mile and a half away.
Right.
It wasn't. It was.
What a really cool setting, though. By the way, it's
it's an interesting place. The lights could be better, and it gets a little dark in there in the second half. The sun goes down, but other than that, it's an interesting place to play. Added to my list of schools I visited, so that was. I need to add another one to my list, so that was fun. But,
so you'll be getting home pretty late tonight.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be midnight or after.
Jeff, when you cover Ohio State, is there a particular coach or individual that you talk to when you cover them, or do you get most of your information like at the after game press conference?
Oh yeah, everything will be after the game, and it'll be very controlled. High school, you just go down on the field and find the coach, find the player, and grab them. This is a much more controlled situation. So they bring them in, and set them down or stand them at a podium, and there's a lot of people there. So it's a completely different atmosphere.
I've always wondered, especially when it comes to football, why these dudes wear their shoulder pads and stuff into those press conferences. Don't you think they'd take just a few minutes to take that stuff off and maybe put on a fresh shirt, but they always they all come in there with their shoulder pads on, and they look like literally looking like they walked off the field straight to that podium.
Yeah. Well, they get them in there pretty quick. Just want to get it over. Everybody wants to kind of get all that over and done with.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Well, Jeff, we understand that Kyle McCord is going to start at quarterback for Ohio State. I'm assuming that the other quarterback will probably play as well. Is this a circumstance where you think he won the job, or is it maybe just the older guy going first?
They said this week that he's won the job to start this game. He said he's more consistent the last couple of weeks of practice and earned the right to start this game. But he said Devin Brown has played so well in camp as well that he's earned the right to play. So he says he's not playing both. He didn't detail any, how many series or Brown's going to play the third series or he's going to start the second quarter. He didn't say anything of that nature. He's got 2 or 3 more days of practice when he said that. And he made that point. He doesn't want to say something. He don't want to tie himself down to anything. So Brown's going to play. He did say he wanted Brown to take meaningful snaps. So we'll see what that looks like. I mean, you can come over here to Indiana and get yourself in a dogfight you shouldn't be in, and that could happen. But they could also be up 28-0 by the end of the first quarter. And if the court has led all 4 of those touchdown drives, and Brown starts the second quarter, I mean, it's the first half. It's not the same kind of pressure and the meaningfulness of that situation either. So I just don't, nobody really knows what he's going to do. He could do it any number of ways, and that would just be something to watch for and see what happens. But I think some of the other big things to watch for are how's the offensive line play. There's 3 new starters there. You got new tackles, and you got a freshman center who's never taken a college snap in his life. Um, that's going to be real interesting. I think Travion Henderson could be very, very good this year. Should be, as long as they can block for him. That'll be interesting. We know the receivers are good. No worries there. The other big thing is the defense. And Knowles gets asked about this every time he's on in front of a mic. What about the big plays? And he has said that he's not blaming it on the personnel. He definitely took some of the blame for it. That he's learning what he should call and shouldn't call in certain situations. These bigger games. I mean, he never played. He never had to coach the past in some of the bigger games. Like the two big games they lost in the last year. Different situation for him. Took some chances he shouldn't have taken and got burned. Zero coverage stuff. But why make that call when you're up against Georgia? Why blitz everybody and leave your backside exposed like that?
Yeah.
When you're ahead, I don't think they'll make that mistake again.
Right.
Even if you think you got the players that can handle that, why put him on? Why put him in that? Coaches I talk about put players in the best chance position to succeed, and then he didn't do that a couple times. So I think hopefully he's learned for their sake. He's learned that and won't do that again. So, but they got to go out and prove it. Just that they're not going to do that anymore before, because everybody's going to worry. They could not give up a big play all season, and then they go to Michigan. It's still going to get talked about. Well, you did this last year. Is this been solved? Until they play somebody who can hit home runs with their offense, and they don't let it happen, the jury's out on whether or not they've really fixed it.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's not so much about what he does or how he does it. It's the net result, right? And the everyday fan's going to sit there and not know the difference between, defensive schemes and alignments, but he's going to know, or she's going to know, that you just gave up an 80-yard pass to a guy who beat somebody one-on-one with no safeties back there. So he's got to prove that they can do that, but not just prove it, but do it against, like you said, against really good teams. They need to not let that happen against the Penn States, Wisconsins, and Michigans of the world.
Yeah. Right.
Well, Jeff, obviously there's talent all over the field with Ohio State. They always do a phenomenal job in recruiting, but and I would certainly say that the wide receiver group is certainly one of the stronger points of that Ohio State football team. But what would you say are their strengths? Would you just point to that wide receiver core, or are there other parts of this football team that are going to stand out this season for the Buckeyes?
Well, I mean, that's the obvious position group that everybody knows about. I think they could be they could show strength just about anywhere, and I think that one rises up. I think the secondary is going to be better. I think Smitty Styles is going to be really good. There's some of that. I think the D line could be very good. The linebackers are good, very experienced. It's just a deeper, more experienced team than I think you've seen them put out the last 2 years overall, all around the whole team, and except for some of this offensive line stuff. Even though our offensive line is deeper than it's been, but I don't know how good it is. He said it's been strength, but that takes some time to show for sure. But I think overall they're deeper. So I think that's I think that would be a strength of it.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
It all comes back to the quarterback, and whether or not McCord can lead them, or Brown. It all boils back down to that, and they can be as deep and good across the board, as you say, in every other position group. But if the quarterback isn't doing what they need him to do when they need him to do it, that's going to be their downfall, I think, ultimately. But he's got. I'm assuming that McCord. I mean, one of the things that probably helped him, I'm guessing, is he has to have some chemistry with Marvin Harrison Jr. since they played together in high school, right?
Sure, absolutely, they would. They would certainly have that.
And I think
somebody's leaning on for sure.
Yeah, I think Marvin Harrison. This is maybe this is just me being a homer here, but I look at the list of candidates for Heisman Trophy, and he's not even on anybody's radar screen. And I'm like, if this dude catches 5 or 6 or 7 passes a game for 180 yards a game, which he's totally capable of doing, and scores a ton of touchdowns, I mean, he's got to be getting some attention, I would think, sooner or later, because this guy is really, really good, and he might be the best of what has been a tremendous run of wide receivers lately at Ohio State.
Yeah, he would be. I mean, guys that non-quarterback, anybody who's not a quarterback,
I know.
You gotta. That's a big thing. You're gonna rise up in a year that maybe quarterback isn't great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a quarterback's award anymore.
It is.
100% is. But at least get on the list, right? It gets some attention. And I mean, Desmond Howard won it as a wide receiver, right? Why can't somebody else? But that was a while ago.
Right.
I understand. And he was a punt returner.
Well, the guy from that Alabama kid won it a couple years ago.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I mean, it can happen. Devontae Smith, so
yes.
It can happen. But if
he was tiny.
If there's a quarterback that's like, Caleb Williams has another great year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
He's gonna win it.
Yeah.
You got to find that year where the rest of it's not so great. Now, he could end up in New York. For sure.
Right.
It doesn't mean he's going to win it. Yeah.
Jeff, before we let you go, I kind of wanted to get your feelings on a couple of big games this weekend. Tomorrow, Florida State is going to take on LSU in the Camping World kickoff. And then on Monday, and Mike and I were talking about this earlier, and I think Clemson is eventually going to take the win, but I kind of have them on upset alert because I think Duke is a better football team than people realize, but that game will take place on Monday. So a couple of big matchups early here in the college football season. Just wanted to see what you felt about those two games.
Well, I would take LSU. Florida State is on the way back up, but I don't know how far back up they are probably yet.
Right.
And that's a tough one. And I think LSU is a team that can definitely be in the SEC championship game. So I would go LSU. I did notice that Duke was only a 13-point dog in that game, which caught my attention. But I think Clemson's the best team in the ACC. I'd be hard-pressed to see that. I think that game's at Duke. So that, I mean, yes, keep an eye on it. Weird things can happen, especially early in the year. Somebody in the top 10 who should be in the top 10 gets beat early in the year. I'm not even sure if that's in the top 10, but they might be. But, there's always a couple games like that. The teams are ranked higher than they should be and get beat. Is Clemson one of those? I have no idea, but,
Yeah, I don't think.
Does Duke play Notre Dame this year?
I don't think they played Duke this year.
Okay, I was gonna say, well, that's why you're rooting for it. If that's the case.
Well, we've got an Ultra alum that's the assistant head coach down there. Pat Doherty's his name, and he's doing a really good job. He was at Ball State previous, but he's down there, and it's interesting that you should mention it because that kid grew up as a huge Notre Dame fan. And that would be interesting for him, I think, to go ahead and coach a game like that. But
I can't remember off the top of my head if they played Duke this season.
Yeah, but it would be interesting if they did. I don't know if
actually might.
Duke can actually pull that upset, Tim. I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from, but and then Jeff's right. There's always maybe one big upset early in the season, but I don't know. That Clemson seems to be pretty good. I mean, again. They're ranked
137.
They're ranked top 5 just in terms of their roster talent and depth in the country.
Well, they're a great program, no doubt. They have fallen off a little bit the last couple seasons, but when you say fallen off, they're still top 10.
Yeah.
So I do expect Clemson to win that, but I think Duke is a lot better than people realize, and if Clemson's not ready to go.
I'll text Pat. I do have him on my phone.
Okay.
I'll text Pat and ask him what he thinks.
What's going on down there in Durham? Is Krzyzewski the football coach now?
No, I think it's Elko. Mike Elko, right?
Yeah, Krzyzewski's probably running the whole school, though, actually.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff, we're going to let you go. I know you're busy. You're
Okay.
on your way over to
Yeah.
Indiana again to cover the Ohio State
we're-
Indiana game.
Yeah, we're getting ready to make a stop here in a couple minutes, so that'd be good.
Well, stay safe and have a great day out there today, and then we'll see you Thursday, most likely.
All right. Yep, sure will.
All
Jeff,
righty.
Thanks, guys.
appreciate it. Enjoy the game, and we'll be looking to. Hey, before you go though, tell everybody where they can find you, Jeff.
Well, my Ohio State, I wrote a story. It's on Press Pros magazine right now about just sort of looking at this season, how it's kind of the last time that football is going to look like this. So you might check that out. Certainly daily news stuff for high school stuff. On Twitter, it's JW_Gilbert. That's where I always push out everything I write on there, plus other things that are going on in the area. So that's the best place.
Outstanding.
All right, Jeff. Have a great day. Enjoy the football, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. See you later.
Go
Thanks
Bucks.
very much. And that was Jeff Gilbert, and always great to talk to Jeff. He's always got some inside stories that are very intriguing, doesn't he, Mike?
He does. He gets around. Now has been to 61 high school football venues. Told us 60 last week, and he hit Valley View for the first time. So he gets around. He's got a lot of experiences. Writes a lot. Loves what he does, both at Cedarville and outside of Cedarville in terms of his sports reporting. And we couldn't have anybody better in the Dayton area to talk sports with us than Jeff Gilbert.
All right, so Mike, last week you picked the Irish, I picked the Irish.
Yeah,
We're going to do 3 games this week.
let's go.
We're going to pick the LSU FSU game.
Talking straight up now with the points, right?
Yeah, let's just go straight up. Clemson Duke,
Okay.
and we'll also do the Ohio State Indiana game.
Those
although
are
I
easy.
think that one's pretty easy.
They're all easy.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
I think I agree with Jeff. LSU over Florida State. LSU's got a top 3 in the country roster in terms of talent and depth. They're hungry. Obviously now with a decent coach there, though I'm not a big fan. I think LSU rolls Florida State this weekend.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to pick FSU in that one
Okay.
because I am not a fan of LSU's coach.
No, you're not. Of course you're not.
I'll give you a little background on that. I think, of course, he did a good job at Notre Dame. I'm not going to
Absolutely.
say he did not, but I don't think he was ever going to get Notre Dame to the promised land. Will they ever get back there? I sure hope. I think they can, and it goes back to the quarterback position. That is one position I don't think Brian Kelly ever developed while he was at Notre
Well,
Dame.
that one, they made the national championship game, right, against Alabama.
Yeah.
And got rolled, but that was pretty close. But they just ran into a buzzsaw. That Alabama team that year wasn't going to be beaten by anybody. But
No.
his quote unquote act ran a little south over there in South Bend, I think, and
Yeah.
I think he finally started making just a few too many demands, and of course LSU threw a ton of money at him, and
You're absolutely correct.
really hard for somebody to turn that down. But he's left a couple programs with a bad taste in their mouth. UC,
Yeah.
and when he left there to go to Notre Dame, and then Notre Dame when he left to go to LSU. Where's he going next? Who knows? But not, like you said, not a big fan of him in terms of his personality and the way he does business, but he does win games and he gets the job done. And I did have a chance to meet him when he walked into Alder when he was recruiting Nick Coleman. I came into a basketball practice to watch and saw Chris Fink out there, and one thing led to another. Chris was walking on at Notre Dame, and so for that I like him. But yeah, anyways, I think he's gonna do really well this year. I think LSU's chomping at the bit, and I think tonight it starts
certainly
this
have
weekend.
talent.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. So Clemson Duke, that one's going to take place on Monday. We talked a little bit about that one with Jeff, but what are your feelings on that
Well,
game?
I'm going to have to kind of agree with you, but mostly for personal reasons. I do know Pat Doherty really well, and he played with my son Zach at Alder. Great kid. I coached him a little bit in basketball growing up, and I'm gonna pick Pat and the Duke
Well, how
Blue
about that?
Devils, and I'm gonna agree with you. Upset alert. Duke over Clemson, 28-27.
Did I talk you into that one? Actually, Mike, I am going to go with Clemson, but
Yeah.
I think that one's going to be closer than people realize. I think Duke is kind of a program on the rise. I don't know that they're would be considered top 10 yet, but
No.
Clemson's not as strong as they have.
That would
been.
be a big upset, though. Even though it's only 13 points in terms of the betting line, that would shock college football nation, I think, if Duke was able to pull that upset. And not a huge Dabo Swinney fan, so I hope Duke does win.
All right, Mike, and then we'll finally, before we wrap up here today, we'll go to the Ohio State-Indiana game. I think we both probably know what each other is going to pick on this one, but what are your feelings?
Yeah,
about
I think
that game?
Ohio State's going to win easily. Do they cover the spread? I don't know.
What is the spread in that
It's
game?
30 something, right around
Okay.
30 maybe even. But I it's all we're beating this horse until it's dead already. But it's all going to boil down to how well McCord plays, not just in terms of leading the team, but making big plays when he needs to and hitting his wide receivers when they're open. It potentially could be it could go either way. I think Ohio State could really roll them, or we could have a decently competitive game. There'll be 70% of the people in the stands will be Ohio State fans. It'll be like a home game for them from that perspective. But Ohio State's going to roll, and if I had to bet today, and I might, I'm going to take Ohio State and give the points to the Hoosiers.
Well, and I certainly think it's a great starting game for Ohio State. It's a Big Ten game, obviously.
It's really weird to start open with a Big Ten on the road game like that, but good.
Yeah, I think McCord just has to be serviceable. If he comes in and doesn't make any mistakes, I think Ohio State wins.
And he's going to
pretty
need some
easily.
help. The offensive line is going to have to block, give him time to throw the ball, right? And so we'll see. It's really going to be interesting. Can't wait to sit down at 3:30 with a cold beverage and a pizza or some nachos or something and watch.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to the game. Hey, folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Had some great conversation. Thank you again to Jeff Gilbert for joining us. It's going to be a fun couple of days here, Mike. It's always excellent viewing just to have these college games on each one of these days over this Labor Day weekend. I think it's great that pro football kind of waits a week and lets college kind of kick off. I love it.
No, it's the best time of the year, and not to mention baseball getting hot and heavy. The Reds are in playoff hunt, and right now probably is the best time of the year to be a sports fan.
All right, for Mike Freshwater, I'm Tim Kernan. Thanks for joining us for Gamecast Radio Sports Talk. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the football, and we'll talk to you next week.
Have a great weekend. Happy Labor Day.